Looking at the New England Patriots, Stephon Diggs in this game was the leading receiver. It's hard to figure. 6 catches, 101 yards, targeted 7 times. No one else was targeted more than 3 times. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL statistical leaders from the all-time greats to the current players leading the NFL. I'm Ernie Jennings, your host, and in this episode, we'll be looking at the game between the Carolina Panthers and the New England Patriots. The Patriots won this game easily, 42-13. It was played in New England Stadium. All right, so let's take a look at this game. We'll start with the top 10 in this game. Top 10, with only one we have today was the Patriots, and that's Ramondre Stevenson. He needed only 27 yards to catch Corey Dillon to move into 8th place all-time in rushing yards. He was able to do that just barely with 38 yards. He now has 3,191 yards to pass Corey Dillon by only 11 yards. Next up for Stevenson is John Steven, who's in 7th with 3,249. So he doesn't need a lot. Only, 58 yards. Possibility, even though he only got 38 this week. But Sam Cunningham, who played way back in the 70s, early 80s, had 5,453 rushing yards to lead the Patriots all time in rushing. That's one of the lower numbers for the number one running back to have. All right, that is it for top 10s. Now, looking at the game itself, we'll start with the score. This game, unlike, as I talked about, a blowout between the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans, which was 26-0, that game was close all the way to the fourth quarter. It wasn't until the fourth quarter when it was Houston only had 6 points. They racked up a bunch of points in the fourth quarter. Now, in this game, we don't have that situation. It was only close in the first quarter, and after that, New England just kept on pounding the Panthers, and by halftime, it was already 28-6. This is an interesting game because the Carolina Panthers just got off their first win over Atlanta, 30-0. And then they come in here and they pretty much get beat in a similar way. They did score, but it's just interesting to see how these games are going early on. It's very hard to predict right now what's going to happen in any particular game, no matter how bad the team may be. All right, let's look at some of the numbers in this game. Carolina did lead in yards and first downs over New England, even though New England stomped them. But one of the scores for New England, actually their first touchdown in the first quarter, was a 87-yard punt return. So that explains some of the yardage differences here. But in first downs, Carolina had 21, New England had 16. And then in total net yards, Carolina had 326, New England had 307. So it's pretty close. And again, unlike the other game between, as I was talking about, the Texans and the Titans dominated in time of possession. And in this game, even though New England won handily, they only had the ball less than 25 minutes compared to over 35 for Carolina, and yet Carolina can only come up with 13 points in this game. Part of that has to do with the very fact that third down efficiency, they were 5 out of 14 for 35%, and then 1 out of 3 on fourth down. So not too good. Another additional, this is I was going to say no interceptions in the game. I was going to say something else, but it's not true, so I won't. That's kind of the numbers there. Let's look at the quarterbacks. Bryce Young, 18 for 30, 18 completions, 30 attempts, only 150 yards, 5 yards per attempt. This is such a low number. Andy Dalton came in, got 5 out of 6 for 58 yards, almost doubled him in yards per attempt. Bryce Young had gotten it back, but I don't know. He just needs some constant reassurance or something. I really don't know. He did have 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He was only sacked once, and he had a quarterback rating of 84. So it wasn't like he played horribly. Now, Drake May, very efficient game. Only 14 completions on 17 attempts for 203 yards. So he had 4 fewer completions, and he had over 50 yards more than Bryce Young. Yards per attempt was 11.9. That's one of the higher ones I've seen so far this week. 2 touchdowns, only sacked 1 time, which is quite an improvement for him. Same with Bryce Young. Bryce Young was sacked quite a bit last year. But Drake May had a quarterback rating of 155.6, almost perfect. Very impressive game for him. Now, looking at the running backs for Carolina, Chuba Hubbard, 10 carries, 49 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. And then Trevor Etienne had 7 carries for 33 yards, 4.7 yards a carry. Rico Dowdle, 9 carries for 32 yards, 3.56 per attempt. This was spread around quite a bit. 28 carries for 129 yards, 4.6 yards a carry. Obviously you want to see Chuba Hubbard getting a lot more than 10 carries, but the ball was spread around quite a bit. But this game was kind of a blowout. It was, like I said, it was already 28-6. After the third quarter, it was 35-6. So you see a lot of replacements coming in this game. Now for New England, and right now, you can't start anybody in their backfield. It looked like Stevenson could be the guy. Then he fumbled a couple of times. And then you thought maybe Henderson would get in there. But honestly, you look at these numbers. Stevenson, 9 carries for 38 yards, 4.2 yards a carry. Henderson, 7 carries for 32 yards, 4.57 yards a carry. He did have a touchdown. So if you happen to put him in the game, at least you were saved a little bit by the fact that he had a rushing touchdown. And then Antonio Gibson, 6 carries, 27 yards and a touchdown, 4.5 yards per carry. So you just can't try. Who are you going to play? I mean, they went 9, 7, and 6 attempts apiece. You don't want to start any of these people. And if you're fortunate that, like if you had Henderson, that he did get a touchdown. All right, let's look at the wide receivers for the Panthers. The only one that I've been starting at all, and he just didn't really have a good game, too good of a game this week, even though he is their primary guy, and that's Tedero McMillan. 4 catches, 62 yards. He was targeted 8 times, which is tied for the most with Tommy Tremble, which I doubt anybody started. He had 5 catches for 42 yards, and he did have the touchdown in this game. But Tedero McMillan's a guy, he was targeted, like I said, 8 times, but only 4 receptions. Mitchell Evans had 3 catches for 23 yards and a touchdown. So 2 guys you just aren't starting getting the touchdowns. And again, this is the problem Young has, is his only really decent receiver is Tedero McMillan. Hunter Renfrow had come in late just before season started. They picked him up, and he kind of looked all right, but he had 2 catches for 10 yards in this game on 2 targets. And then Tommy Tremble, 8 targets. That's the most. Chuba Hubbard did have 3 catches out of the backfield for 20 yards. Chuba Hubbard for Carolina is definitely the guy you're playing, even though he shared time with Trevor Etienne and Rico Dowdle. I got to slow down a little bit. I'm trying to get these in 10 minutes, and I'm not doing it, and I'm rushing. So I'll get better. So Chuba Hubbard ended up carrying the ball 10 carries plus 3 receptions 13 times, which was the most for the team, but not by a lot. Looking at the New England Patriots, Stephon Diggs in this game was the leading receiver. It's hard to figure. 6 catches, 101 yards, targeted 7 times. No one else was targeted more than 3 times. So he was the guy in this game. Did not get a touchdown, but he did get over 100 yards receiving. The touchdown went to Hunter Henry, tight end, who's been doing pretty good this season. Only had 2 catches, but like I said, 1 was a touchdown. 2 catches, 39 yards, only targeted twice in the game. Now, one other one, Kayshon Boutte, who had started off well, and some people thought he might be become the leading receiver, only had 1 catch on 3 targets for 18 yards. So a rough game for him. Out of the backfield, Henderson did have 2 catches for 14 yards. Stevenson had 1 catch for 3 yards in this game coming out of the backfield. All right, let's look at the defenses. For Carolina, no one really stood out. 2 players had 6 total tackles. And that's Nick Scott and Ashawn Robinson. Tershawn Wharton did have a sack in this game. The only sack that Carolina Panthers were able to get in this game. Looking at New England Patriots, a couple of good players here. Jack Gibbons, 12 total tackles, 8 solos, 4 assists. And then Robert Spillane really playing well this year, 10 tackles, 4 solos, 6 assists in this game. On Chasen had the sack in this game, the only sack that the New England Patriots were able to get in this game. So overall, the defenses, nothing completely standing out. You did have the 2 players for New England who did have quite a few tackles. All right, so that's a wrap on this game. We'll say that Patriots win it 42-13. They are now 2-2. The Panthers are 1-3. And the Patriots, this series was tied going into this game, and now the Patriots lead the series 5-4. All right. Despite a few goof ups there, we'll get that corrected hopefully soon. That is a wrap for this episode. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. You can find us at Just the Stats NFL at YouTube and also on your podcast outlets, Spotify, Apple, and so forth. You can also catch me at justthestatsnfl@gmail.com. Appreciate you listening, and until next time, I am out.